Let's start though with Nike. This is the world's largest player in this space. Of course, it started out its business in the footwear environment, making those fancy running shoes. You'll remember the story about the founder who was making the sole of the shoes using his wife's waffle iron.
Yeah.
That guy was Phil Knight, or in fact it was Bill Bauman and Phil Knight who started the business in Oregon in the United States back in 1964. This one has been a star performer of late. We'll see the share chart in a minute, but it's risen to a market capitalization of $106 billion. So it's really in the big league nowadays. Price to earnings ratio 32, dividend yield 0.89. That's not very generous. Let's go to the graph because that really tells it all. That's a 5-year chart. And look how it's in liftoff mode. But not only that, it's in liftoff mode in recent weeks and months as well. On some better than expected sales. It's doing well in China. It's doing well around the world. I reckon this is a must-have in every offshore portfolio.
I agree. I think it's a company that, I mean, it's 5 times the size of the closest competitor anyway. So, you know, it's focused on the main sort of drivers of good income for them and what we just discussed in terms of running. They're very focused on shoes, still one of their biggest drivers in the clothing. They have, like Adidas, had a bit of a tough time when it came to the golfing equipment, like we talked about.
Tiger Woods, you know, his career just went...
Well, choices you make, eh? Well, I'm thinking well, when you look at the valuations rather, let's just say that Nike has always traded at a premium to Adidas. But when you look at the margins, it's the same story. So you're actually paying for what you're getting. And I don't think that Nike will any of these days be giving up a substantial part of their market exposure. When you look at the closest competitor in the US, which is Under Armour, which we're going to discuss in a while, they're trading at a very inflated sort of PE, but their revenue is only about, well, a seventh of what their market cap is. So when you compare that to the revenue of Nike, it's a substantial difference. So there's still a lot of market share that Nike has captured.
Okay, and the global story is very strong because, you know, we've seen recently in China, there was some story I saw yesterday about some 5-year plan the Chinese government has got to increase the number of sporting facilities, get people active in sports, and the Nike brand is seen as a sort of premium global brand, so it's an aspirational one for Chinese consumers to aim at.
I agree. I think if you consider the whole emerging market story for sporting brands, it hasn't been sort of one of the key spending items in any of these markets, and there's a lot of growth opportunity for a company like Nike that's probably best known around the globe.
Which is why the marketing chiefs at Nike take decisions like to spend a bomb on the sponsor kit for like the Brazil national football team.
That's
because that then gets, you know, portrayed across the screens. People buy the shirts in order to be supporters and so on. Let's come back to the footwear business because some people say, oh, well, they're too expensive. I can't pay 2,000 rands for a pair of Nike Flyknit Lunar 3s and so on. The margins on those things, as we often point out, very good because they've gone to this knit technology, which is a better shoe and does less waste than the old sort of cut and paste version.
And it's easier for them to make. So overall, high margins all around, and it's fashionable now. So more people want to buy it. But I think if you consider Nike compared to many of the other, say, running brands, which we are talking about now, and a predominant sort of driver for the earnings, Nike is not the most expensive. I mean, when I run with Brooks, and Brooks is by far more expensive than Nike. That's right. So Nike is not the most expensive footwear out there, which also puts them in a good sort of space.
And of course, not to even mention the basketball, the American football, which is in their core market. Okay, so even at $126 a share, we're hot on Nike.
I'm hot on Nike.